Hello greeted student, this is Sir Jet and I am here to help you answer your MAPEH module. Welcome to MAPEH class. This day we are going to focus on the music of the 20th century. The start of the 20th century saw the rise of distinct musical styles that reflected a move away from the conventions of the earlier classical music. This new style were Impressionism, Expressionism, Neoclassicism, Avant-garde, and the Modern Nationalism. In this lesson, you will discover that the distinct musical styles of the 20th century, particularly the Impressionism, would not have developed if not for the musical genius of the individual composers such as Claude Debussy and Maurice Ravel, who stood behind the moving forces behind the musical style that I have mentioned. Coming from different nations, Germany and France, these composers clearly reflected the growing globalization of musical style in the 20th century. So let's get started. At the end of the lesson, you should be able to describe the distinctive musical elements of the given pieces in the 20th century music or 20th century styles. Before we proceed to our lesson, let's see if you are ready to go. So this pretest will be called a smiley to start the day. So for the direction, you are just going to draw a happy face if the statement is correct and a sad face if the statement is incorrect. The first statement, Impressionism is more on suggesting a hazy mood rather than a solid reality. Next, Claude Monet is considered one of the moving forces of Impressionism in music. Next, Claude Debussy and Ravel's music works sound quite similar in terms of their harmonic and textural characteristics. The two differ greatly in their personalities and approach to music. Number 4, a millennial junior high school student who adheres to exploratory styles would prefer Clair de Lune to Bolero. And the last, Impressionism uses overlapping harmony which makes music easy to understand. Do not worry if you couldn't be able to answer the pretest. As I have said, this is just a pretest. I just really wanted to know how much do you know about the topic. So now let's go on to the discussion. Impressionism. Impressionism is one of the earlier but concrete forms declaring the entry of the 20th century music was known as Impressionism. It is a French movement in the late 19th to early 20th century. The sentimental melodies and dramatic emotionalism of the preceding Romantic period, or their themes and melody, are easy to recognize and enjoy, were being replaced in favor of moods and impressions. There is an extensive use of colors and effects, vague melodies and innovative chords, and progression leading to mild dissonance, meaning to say Impressionism music. From the word itself, impress, the main focus of the composer is to impress. That is why they are using extensive use of colors and effects. They are also using vague music, vague melodies, what we call the non-recognizable melodies. So sublime moods and melodic suggestions replace highly expressive and programmed music or music that contained visual imagery. From the word itself, visual imagery, when you hear the Impressionism music, there will be reflection that you can see in your mind. So with this trend came new combination of extended chords, harmonies, whole tone, chromatic scales, and the pentatonic scales. So Impressionism was an attempt not to depict reality, but merely to suggest it. It was meant to create an emotional mood rather than a specific picture. In terms of imagery, Impressionistic forms were translucent and hazy, as if trying to see through a rain-drenched window. So as I have mentioned earlier, when we say Impressionism music, there is no specific or distinct picture you will imagine if you hear this music. The Impressionism music is playing along with your imagery. So as I have mentioned, Impressionistic forms were translucent and hazy, as if trying to see through a rain-drenched window. So it is not clear. In Impressionism, the sounds of different chords overlap lightly with each other to produce new, subtle music colors. Chords did not have a definite order and a sense of clear resolution. Most of the Impressionist works centered on nature and its beauty, lightness, and brilliance. A number of outstanding Impressionists created works on this subject. The Impressionistic movement in music had its proponents in the French composers like Claude Debussy and Maurice Ravel. Are you familiar with the two composers? Later on, as we go on discussing this topic, we are going to focus on their creative works. Both had developed a particular style of composing adopted by many 20th century composers. Among the most famous luminaries in their countries were Ottorino Respighi from Italy, Manuel de Falla and Isaac Albeniz from Spain, and Ralph Vaughan Williams from England. So let us try to know more about Claude Debussy. Claude Debussy is one of the most important and influential of the 20th century composers. He was the primary exponent of the Expressionist movement and the focal point for other Impressionist composers. So as we have mentioned earlier, he is one of the driving forces of Impressionism music. He changed the course of musical development by dissolving traditional rules and conventions into a new language of possibilities in harmony, rhythm, form, texture, and color. So Debussy was born in Saint-Germain-en-Layen in France on August 22, 1862. His early musical talents were channeled into piano lessons. He entered the Paris Conservatory in 1873. He gained a reputation as an erratic pianist in the Ravel in theory and harmony. He added other systems of musical composition because of his musical training in 1884. He won the top prize at the Prix de Rome competition with his composition, The Prodigal Son. This enabled him to study for 2 years in Rome, where he got exposed to music of Richard Wagner, specifically his opera Tristan und Isolde. Debussy's mature creative period was represented by the following works. Number 1, we have Ariete Souglis, Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun, String Quartet, Pelias et Melisande, Lemar, Images, Suite Bergamasque, and Estampes. So his musical composition total more or less 227, which include orchestral music, chamber music, piano music, opera, ballets, songs, and other vocal music. So this creative style of Debussy was characterized by his unique approach to the various musical elements. So Debussy's compositions deviated from the Romantic period and is clearly seen by the way he avoided metric pulses and preferred free form and developed his themes. Debussy's Western influences came from composers Franz Liszt and Joseph Verdi. From the East, he was fascinated by the Javanese gamelan that he had heard at the 1889 Paris Exposition. I know you are very familiar with gamelan ensemble. Where does gamelan ensemble came from? Yes, you're right, it is from Indonesia. But a group of performers of gamelan ensemble was invited in the 1889 Paris Exposition, where Debussy saw them and he was fascinated by them. And from the visual arts, Debussy was influenced by Monet, Pissarro, Manet, Degas, and Renoir. And from the literary arts, he was fascinated by Mallarmé, Verlaine, and Rimbaud. Most of his close friends were painters and poets who significantly influenced his compositions. His role as the father of the modern school of composition made its mark in the styles of the late 20th century composers like Igor Stravinsky, Edgar Varese, and Olivier Messiaen. Debussy spent the remaining years of his life as a critic, composer, and performer. Debussy died in Paris on March 25, 1918 of cancer at the height of the First World War. So for our listening activity, I would like you to listen to one of his famous masterpieces, which is called Clair de Lune, or The Moonlight in English. Let us listen to the music. Did you enjoy listening to the music? And so because of that, I am going to ask you some questions. This activity will be called a deeper field of Impressionism. So you are just going to answer the following question. Number 1, how has dynamic, when you say dynamic, the softness and loudness of musical sound, how has dynamic been useful throughout the composition? Does it help you to really feel the deep feeling of Impressionism? Next question, number 2. What makes the meter, the beat or the pulse of Claude Debussy different from our Filipino folk songs, Leron-Leron, Sinta? Are they similar in beat or not? And last question, did you feel the irregular beat or pulse in his music? So what natural activity or movements in nature can you compare it to? Why? So did you feel the irregular beat or pulse in his music? Or does the beat or the pulse of the music changes one at a time? So what natural activity or movement in nature can you compare it to? Can you compare it to the movement of the sea? Or how about the movement of the air? Or can you compare it to the moving tree? So what natural activity or movement in nature can you compare the music? And why did you compare it to that natural activity? So for our art league, since this is a MAPEH class, so this activity will be called Make Impressionism Visible. So on a clean sheet of bond paper or Oslo paper or just at the back of your module, draw or sketch the natural activity or movement in nature you can compare to Claude Debussy or the moonlight. So if you're going to use watercolor, use the tip of the brush to do point strokes on the paper. And if you're also going to use crayons or oil pastel, use also the tip, the color. Let us remember that Impressionism cannot convey a clear image. So on your artwork, it should not have a clear image, but a point stroke from the tip of the brush or crayons or the oil pastel. Do you still remember your topic in grade 9, the pointillism? So that is what you are going to apply, the pointillism. So you may seek a little assistance from your family members in this sourcing out of materials or in this art process. But be sure that you are the one to do or to finish the task. I assure you that this will be a rewarding task. So once you are done with your activity or task, show the artwork to your family and let them write messages or comments on the back of your artwork. Their names, signature, and the date the artwork was finished will be validated as your home task. So your artwork will be graded according to the following criteria. Relevance to Impressionism, 15 points. And to activity or the creativity, we have 10 points. A total of 25 points. I know there will always be someone from this group who is an artist. So do not be shy of your artwork. Be proud of it because you can be an artist. So are you ready to meet another Impressionist in music? So the next Impressionist composer I am going to introduce to you is Maurice Ravel or Joseph Maurice Ravel. So Maurice Ravel was born in Ciboure, France, to a Basque mother and a Swiss father. He entered the Paris Conservatory at the age of 14. Imagine, he's just only 14 when he entered the Conservatory of Music. He studied there with an eminent French composer like Gabriel Fauré. During his stint with the school, where he stayed until his early 20s, he had composed a number of masterpieces. The composition style of Ravel is mainly characterized by its uniquely innovative but not a tonal style or harmonic treatment. It is defined with intricate and sometimes modal melodies and extended chordal components. So it demands considerable technical virtuosity. from the performer, which is the character, ability, or skill of a virtuoso. When we say virtuoso, this is a person who excels in musical technique or executions. So the harmonic progression and modulations are not only musically satisfying but also pleasantly resonant and elegant, sophisticated. His refined delicacy and color, contrast, and extensively used in his works of a programmatic nature, wherein visual imagery is either suggested or portrayed. Many of his works deal with water in its flowing or stormy moods as well as with human characterization. Imagine that his works is really undefinable. So some of Ravel's works include the following: Pavane for a Dead Princess on 1889, The Water Fountains, The String Quartet, Sonatine for Piano, Mirrors on 1905, Gaspard de la Nuit on 1908. And these are followed by a number of other significant works including Valses Nobles et Sentimentales, Le Tombeau de Couperin, Rhapsody Espagnole, Bolero, Daphnis et Chloe, La Valse, or the two piano concerti composed in 1929. Ravel was considered as perfectionist and very great a musical craftsman. He strongly adhered to the classical form, specifically its ternary structure. A strong advocate of Russian music, he also admired the music of Chopin, Liszt, Schubert, and Mendelssohn. He died in Paris in 1937. So for our listening activity, I am going to present to you one of his famous work, the Bolero. So let us listen to his famous masterpiece. So after listening to that music, let us answer the following question. Number 1, did you feel the regular beat or pulse in this music? Or does it change? Or does the beat of music changes? What activity or movement in nature can you compare it to? Can you compare it to the raging sea? Can you compare it to the flowing river water? So in what natural activity can you compare it? Next, what makes the beat, the meter, or pulse of bolero different from Clair de Lune? So let us compare the work of Claude Debussy, Clair de Lune, and the work of Maurice Ravel, Bolero. And last question, how does harmony used throughout the composition? When we sing harmony, a pleasing combination of musical sound, or the relationship between two or more notes sung or played simultaneously. So is there really a harmony in that masterpiece? So how does harmony used in that masterpiece? So yes, we are almost finished. I am very happy that you are still here listening or watching this video presentation. So for our formative test or post-test, let us check your understanding using the paper and pencil test. The first question, who is considered the foremost impressionist? Support your answer using your own words. Any language that you are comfortable with may be used in answering this question. It's either Tagalog, Bicol, or English. Although of the same impressionist music style, Claude Debussy's Clair de Lune is different from Maurice Ravel's Bolero. In your own words, describe their similarities and differences using the table you can see on the screen. So let us distinguish the similarities and differences of Clair de Lune and Bolero from melody, meter, dynamic, and harmony. So that ends our video lesson for this day. I am very happy that you stayed with me until we finish discussing this topic. I hope you have learned so much from me. Thank you very much, grade 10, and see you again on my next class. Goodbye! Thank you!